Hello, welcome to a quick video on exam prep for Marketing 365. I just wanted to cover a couple points that we may have had to gloss over due to time in class. The first point I want to touch on, again, because we talked about this in class and there was a little bit of a mix-up. So we have first we have market analysis, customer need analysis, competitor analysis, and company analysis. And these are listed out in the first slide covering learning objective number 1. So the market analysis is basically saying, again, who's in the market, how big is the market in terms of dollars, units sold, is the market growing, is the market shrinking? Those sort of things are basically saying, is this market even still profitable? That's our market analysis. Customer needs analysis is basically asking, what do people actually need? Are there certain problems that are becoming more prevalent or less prevalent? And how do we make sure that we're actually addressing those needs with our service? The competitor analysis is saying, hey, we want to make sure we know what are the other people in our industry doing, because if other people are making more green products or are making bigger products, we need to know that so we can kind of adjust our strategy to match or to just compensate for that. And the company analysis is an internal process. It's basically saying, what are we doing as a company and how can we make sure that our company is staying relevant. The next point I want to address is the learning objective number 3, specifically talking about the types of segmentation. So you see in your textbook you have demographic segmentation, which is relatively straightforward: age, gender, income. But then in the section where it talks about psychographic segmentation, it says it has become more popular as it reflects people's lifestyles, attitudes, and aspirations. So specifically think about if I plucked 2 white males and said, okay, these are the same people, I'd market to them in the same way. There's a very good chance that they may be 2 totally different people, even though they match on demographics. So we want to be very careful about that. The psychographics, like it says, lifestyles, attitudes, aspirations. A subcategory of that is called VALs, V-A-L, which stands for values, attitudes, and lifestyles. So either of those are terms that could be used to basically talk about who is that person, what are the things that they care about. Behavioral segmentation addresses this shortcoming as it focuses on observable behavior. So one of the big differences, how I feel about something versus what I do could be very different. So how I feel about the dogs being groomed to look like Elmo could be very different than what I actually do. So again, the psychographic versus actual behavior. And then need-based segmentation. Need-based segmentation is addressing what are the characteristics or what is actually missing, what is needed there. I also want to briefly touch on figure 3.5, the services table. So on the left side, we see a number of markets served, which is our scope. And basically we have few or narrow, and then we have many or wide. So when we look at our textbook, it says fully focused, which is the serving of very few people and having a very narrow group of offerings or breadth of offerings. What that means is we basically do one offering, one service, and we offer it to a small group of people. That's the hernia surgery. And so if you look at the little paragraph next to it, it'll show that basically because it's a relatively small or narrow group of people that need hernia surgery, we're not offering it to the market at large. Versus service focus, where it says many and it's under narrow, that's where they're saying LASIX, because LASIX covers a much broader group, a much bigger segment of the market, but still LASIX only clinics offer a very narrow offering. For learning objective 7, we only covered the first 4 points that basically say here are what you need to have for a really good positioning statement. I also want you guys to look at the 6 points that say what are the 6 questions that we should be able to answer as a company. So what does our firm currently stand for in the minds of current and potential consumers? Question 2, what customers do we serve now and which ones would we like to serve or would like to target in the future? What is the value proposition for each of our current service offerings and what market segments is each one targeted at? How does each of our service products differ from those of our competitors? And how well do customers in the chosen target segments perceive our service offerings as meeting their needs? And lastly, what changes do we need to make to our service offerings in order to strengthen our competitive position within our target segments? So when you look at each of these questions, you definitely want to think about this in terms of the final project, because it's going to be really helpful for developing a flyer of sorts, and basically saying what customers are we serving. So is this an offering that is targeted towards everyone at Morehead State, or targeted on to certain students at Morehead State? What other ways can students deal with the stress of COVID, stress of academics, and how can we make sure that this particular event is better at de-stressing our students than other competing events or other alternatives for de-stressing students? And a final quick comment on just things that we did talk about, but I just want to reiterate. One, when you see STP in the book, don't freak out because it has no D, because again, new textbooks for Intro to Marketing are going to have STPD as in dog, but older textbooks are not going to have that. So we just have S for segmentation, T for targeting, and P for positioning. The next thing, again, is making sure we understand what barriers to entry are, things that basically make it harder or easier to enter a market and compete with the people who are already there. And then a competitive advantage is what is it that you're doing, or what is it that your offering or service has that makes it distinct and better than competing products. So again, we use the toothpaste example with the fluoride. The fluoride was a great competitive advantage in terms of it was different, but it was a terrible competitive advantage in that it was easy to mimic. So competitive advantages, we want them to not be easy to mimic, so that way we can stay longer in that space.